What's up everybody, Greg here with Lens Pro to Go and Lens Rentals, and in today's video we're going to be looking at another cinematography lighting breakdown. This time I was on set with New Sky Productions shooting for a robotics company in their warehouse, doing some talking head interview style setups. So we're going to look at some of the problems we ran into shooting in their warehouse and some of the lighting issues that we had and how we sort of overcame those and what the final product was. So let's roll those shots right now. There's a 2-shot with both of the talent in it and then individual single shots of each of them so we can sort of cut around in post-production. So I'm going to roll those right now and then we'll get into the breakdown. Now we're going to take a look at the camera setup and then we'll get into some of the lighting breakdowns and the problem solving. So to start off, we shot on the Red Epic W with the Helium 8K sensor. We shot with the Sigma Cine Primes. We have an 85, 1.5. We are at a 2.8 for the individual shots. And then we switched to the 50mm for the 2-shot of both of them. So for our camera settings, we were shooting at 800 ISO, which is the native ISO for this sensor. We're at 2398, 180 degrees shutter angle, and about 4500 Kelvin shooting in 8K like I said. We're also shooting with the IPP2, so we're getting better roll-offs in the highlight areas. Now here's a little hint, because you can see we're using a teleprompter here. When you're using a teleprompter, you want to use the longest lens possible. This way, when your talent's reading the teleprompter, their eyes aren't darting back and forth across the screen. So with the longer lens, the letters are further away, so they're closer together, and they don't have to move their eyes as much. If you're up close and using a wider lens, their eyes are going to be really going across the whole frame, and it's going to be really noticeable on camera. The other thing we were using with our camera setup was the Atomos Sumo 19-inch monitor. And this is just the monitor. This isn't the monitor recorder version. If you wanted to, you can get the monitor recorder version and be able to record ProRes to an SSD. We're just recording internally on the Red Mini Mags, and we're doing the R3D files. This is a really great monitor with a ton of exposure tools and focus tools to really help us nail down what our image is going to look like. So here's a shot of the wide behind the scenes. You can see our camera that we have right here. We got the teleprompter. We got a nice 4x6 diffusion overhead with our light panels Gemini over here. And this is just casting down for our key light, which I'll look at in a second. We got some sound blankets. These actually act as two purposes. You can see we're using the black side toward the talent. The talent will be standing right on the other side of this fabric right here. And that's adding a little bit of negative fill and contrast to the side of the face. And it's also helping with the sound. Because we're in a big warehouse, there's a lot of echoes going on. So we tried to put up as much fabric to sort of dampen that sound bouncing around. We also have another one over here, and this is actually blocking some reflections that we're going to look at later on in one of the talent's glasses. So going to that first light that we're using, we are using the light panels Gemini, and this is at about 4500 Kelvin, and we have a little bit of green tint added to it, which I'm going to show you why once we get into the coloring process at the end. So if we jump into the 2-shot of them, we can see what that light's actually doing, and it's coming in from the top right side of frame, and we're getting these really nice shadow lines along the neck. There's no hard edges, and we're also getting some really nice key lights in the eyes, like you can see right here and right here. So jumping back to that wide shot again, you can see we have another stand here, and this is sort of booming up and overhead, and we have a 4x4 frame with some duvetine wrapped over it, and this is actually blocking this light that's right outside of frame. So our talent is right down here behind this sound blanket, and what this light was doing was coming down because it's in front of them and adding some really hard edges for like their nose and their chin. So what we did was just throw up a duvetine fabric to block that out, and that's giving us that nice soft shadow now from the Gemini light that we have shooting through the diffusion. So if we jump back to that 2-shot one more time, you can see we actually have a really nice edge light going down the left side of her body. We don't see it as much on him, but there is a little bit coming down on his shoulders and really giving some good separation. Now, this is one of the reasons why we tuned our key light to be a little bit more green, which again we'll look at once we get into the color correction. Because if we're able to match both of those lights, then when we go to white balance it, it'll actually turn all of the warehouse lights to the proper color as well as our skin. And our skin wouldn't be pushing too much towards the magentas, or it wouldn't be too green. And that's really the importance of balancing your lights to what you have in the scene already so that everything is color corrected properly. So going into the tight shot of her, I'm just going to kind of recap what we just looked at. So we have that really nice soft wrapping light coming from the right side of frame, giving us that really nice roll off into the shadows and not any of those hard edges. We got the nice catch lights in the eyes, as you can see right here. And then we have a really nice rim light coming from the right side of frame, sort of edging her and giving some really good separation. We have switched over to the 85mm for this lens, and we're getting some really nice detail with that 8K sensor, as you can see, like in her eyes and basically in all of the details of her face, in her lips, and her hair up here. So jumping over to his single shot, this is where we actually had to do a little bit of tweaking to our setup. As you can see in his glasses, we have a decent amount of reflections over here on the right. This was pretty much across the whole frame, covering both of his eyes, and it was really distracting. So what we ended up doing is, if we jump back to that wide shot again, you can see over on the right we have this 4x6 floppy. It's basically just a pole with some duvetine wrapped over it and then clamped to it. And that's really blocking out a lot of the windows that you can't really see, but they're all over here to the right side of the frame. It's basically a full wall of windows. So we put this one up, and then we also moved this one a little bit closer to camera to sort of make a black wall around camera in the direction that he was looking, to get rid of as many reflections as possible. Other than that, there really wasn't much else we did to change from the wide setup to his close-up, and most of the rest of it was done in color correction and sort of cropping and reframing a little bit. Because we were using 8K, we had that flexibility to move it around. So for the color correction that we did with the shot of two of them, we actually just pulled that over into both of their singles. We added in that green to our light. So I'm going to show you the original shot before we color graded it, which looks like this. As you can see, there is a crazy green hue shift to the whole image. And that was in part because we added that green tint to our light to match the warehouse lights that were already there. Now, if I just go back and forth between these two, as you can see, we're pulling out all those really good skin tones, and we're having a really good color balance to the whole scene now. Including the warehouse lights that were giving us our edge on our talent, we're actually able to correct that and now have a completely white balanced scene instead of having that green shift in the lights that were already there. Other than that green shift that we tweaked, our white balance was pretty much spot on, and we did a little bit of cropping and reframing to get them both sort of centered in the frame how they are. But that's really it for this. It's a pretty simple setup. So to recap really quick, we have that one light just outside of frame, which is the light panel's Gemini, balanced to 4500 Kelvin. And then we have a little bit of a green shift to it just to match the overhead lights. That's shooting through a 4x6 diffusion, coming from an up angle because of the warehouse lights. We sort of wanted to emulate that. We have this stand putting up a 4x negative just outside of frame to block out that warehouse light from giving us those hard shadows on the face. We got the duvetine here hanging to get rid of reflections in his glasses. We have the sound blanket to help with sound, as well as give a negative fill off to the left side of camera. And that's pretty much it. So that's going to wrap it up for this cinematography lighting breakdown. I hope you guys are getting something out of these videos. If you are, make sure to let me know in the comments below. I'd love to know what you guys are getting out of them and where you want me to go a little more in depth. If you guys want to check out New Skies videos, that are going to be linked to in the description below, as well as all of the gear that we used for this shoot. If you guys want to see more of these cinematography lighting breakdowns, we have a playlist with a bunch of them in there, and we're always coming out with new videos. So if you're not already, make sure you subscribe to the channel for new videos every single week, and I'll see you in the next one.